It is a great pleasure for me to introduce to you the governor of the great state of Nebraska and big Cubs fan. Let's welcome Pete Ricketts.
I will not be one of the people competing for those advertising dollars in this next year, okay? So it's not going to be my fault if you have trouble buying advertising space, not me. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here today and for all your support in helping me get here in the first place. What I thought I'd do today is talk about some of the opportunities that we have been working on in my administration, some of the things we've been doing. And then we'll open up to questions and answers, and Toby, I'll rely on you to give me the hook. Does that sound good? Okay. Good. The key thing we face, and I know you all as business people will appreciate, is that we've got to grow the state. We've got to create more and better paying jobs. We've got to keep more of our young people here. And we have to attract people from across the country to move, to make Nebraska their home. And to accomplish that, we have to focus on three broad areas. The first is becoming more competitive when it comes to taxes. The second is cutting regulatory red tape. And the third is improving upon our system of education. So I'm going to hit upon each of those a little bit here today. Now, when it comes to becoming more competitive on taxes, as I travel around the state, in fact on Friday, I just did 3 more town halls in Holdridge, Imperial, and Oshkosh. The number one thing people have talked about is property taxes. Whether you're a farmer or a rancher, you've seen your ag land valuations go up, or even a homeowner, Lincoln or Omaha. We certainly all feel that pain. And we are going to be working on what some of those ideas for property tax relief are and rolling those out prior to this next session. Now, in the last session, we made great progress. We were able to cut the growth of government by nearly in half. In the last budget, we grew government at 6.5%, and the budget we're in right now, just started, we're growing it at 3.5%. And because we were able to do, if we were able to cut that growth of government in half, we were able to add in additional money to the property tax credit relief fund. Took it up over 45%. Now that fund is direct relief from the state to all property owners in the state. And at this biennium, we will deliver $408 million in direct, dollar for dollar, property tax relief to everybody who owns property in the state of Nebraska. That's a big win for taxes. But we know there's more work left to do. In the Revenue Committee in the last session, there were 26 different bills on property tax relief that were dropped in that committee. Not one of them got enough consensus to be able to get out of it. So as I said, we're working right now, meeting internally, talking with other groups, senators, about what we introduce into the next session to be able to accomplish it. Now, one of the other areas where we've got to be more competitive is in income tax. The only state around that's got a higher income tax than us is Iowa. If you look at the Tax Foundation ranking, we're 12th highest when it comes to property taxes, 26th highest when it comes to income taxes, and the overall business tax climate, we're ranked number 29. Clearly, we're not being competitive. So we've got a lot of work, and I believe that to be able to get both property and income tax, you're going to have to work it together to be able to get enough votes, not only get it out of committee, to be able to get it on the floor, and actually be successful in overriding what you always have to assume is going to be a filibuster. You're going to need 33 votes. And again, we're working with other tax experts on the income tax piece. We'll be rolling out those ideas as well as we get closer to the session. Now, when it comes to getting tax relief, sustainable tax relief, there is no silver bullet. Just like you all know in your businesses, the only way to get that is to control your growth and allow your revenues to continue to grow. That's how we get tax relief. And we made great strides in this last session by controlling the growth of 3.5%, but we've got to continue to do more work on it. And this is where I'm bringing my private sector experience, former Chief Operating Officer of Ameritrade, to running state government, to make it more effective and more efficient by leveraging the things that you all do every day in your business. So for instance, when I walked into the governor's office, I said, can I have a job description for everybody who reports to the governor? They don't have it. Well, what about annual reviews? They don't do them. But what about measurements of the agencies to know what they're doing, what they're focused on? Don't have those either. Some of the things that we have to have in the private sector to be successful, we're not doing in state government. We're putting those things in place to be able to hold agencies and in particular agency heads accountable for delivering on what we expect them to deliver, which is how are they delivering those services. And at state government, we deliver very important services to some of the most vulnerable people in our society. And we've got to make sure that just like in your organizations, we're doing a good job of delivering those services and controlling our costs. And see, that's one of the things we've got to change. We're really looking at a lot of cultural change here in state government. Changing that mindset to more of a private sector mindset. See, a lot of times when somebody asks about, well, you're going to cut government, does that mean you're cutting programs? What programs are you cutting? And certainly if there's programs that aren't meeting the needs that we're spending money on that are wasteful, we want to cut them. But we've got to change this mentality that controlling costs means that you're cutting services. You all know that if you went to your customers and said, hey, I'm going to bring your costs down because I'm going to cut these services, your customers would go to your competitors. Right? You can't do that because you've got that competitive pressure to always do a better job of delivering your services and bringing your costs down at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. Yet in the government, we seem to have this mindset that they are mutually exclusive. So we've got to change, say, no, you can do a better job by leveraging technology, better processes, to be able to do a better job delivering your services and bring those costs down at the same time. And that's what we're trying to change. So some of the innovations we've brought in place. First of all, just sort of the structural. We did something innovative for the government sector, but really not so much for the private sector, which is we raised money with the help of the community to be able to hire an executive search firm to go out and do a nationwide job search to get the best talent available from across the country in key positions where we spend a lot, like health and human services, the Department of Growth, corrections, and economic development. Now, on that last one, the person we hired for economic development wasn't a good fit. And as you all know, again, in your businesses, sometimes you make that hire that through all the rigorous process you put that person through, still doesn't end up working out. So we had to make that change, and we're now looking for somebody new to come in and lead the Department of Economic Development, which is obviously a key position for us to be able to grow the state. We also hired a chief operating officer. Now, we're not the first state in the country to have one, but we're one of the first. And his job is to drive that measurements and process improvement throughout all of our organizations. Start measuring what we're doing and then driving those metrics to be better. Now, some of the examples of how this is playing out is coming from some of our departments where we've hired people from outside the state to be able to come in and shake things up, try and create a different culture. So, for instance, in our Department of Roads, we hired a gentleman from Kansas who had been in the Kansas Department of Transportation for 11 years and worked in the private sector in 8 different states. His name is Kyle Schneelands. And he came on in August. He's been working with the Federal Highway Administration. And because he found ways to streamline the process between us and the Federal Highway Administration, he was able to save about $3 million. And we're passing that savings back to counties and cities. Cities of the first class. So that they can invest that money in their roads and bridges. In our corrections department, and I probably don't have to go through all the issues we've got there, but Director Frakes came from Washington State, 32 years of experience, started off as a uniformed officer, worked his way up through the ranks. He is leveraging technology to help us reform, for instance, how we calculate prison sentences. Probably heard about all the problems we had letting people out early because we miscalculated percentages. Well, I can tell you why that happened. The process was often, get that inmate folder, and on the back, you calculate the sentence by hand. That's a process fraught with error. So we're automating that process, taking that human error out. And one of the things we found as we went through this, we found we were making other mistakes too. Now, I'm not happy we found other mistakes, but I am happy that people are feeling like they can come forward and tell us about those mistakes, because when we're doing things wrong, we don't know about them, we can't fix them, but if we know about them, we can address them. In our Department of Labor, we're changing our unemployment system, and we turned it into a reemployment system. Again, in a state where we've got the nation's lowest unemployment rate, and I know you all know how hard it is to find good people. We've got to do a better job of connecting people who have a job with the people who need a job. So now what we're doing, as of October 1st, this is the first of the nation program, we're requiring everybody who applies for unemployment benefits to sit down with a jobs coach, create a resume talking about their skills and interests, and then, of course, they've got that resume to go out and look for a job. Importantly, that resume is searchable online, so that companies can search that database for people that they need, the skills they need, and reach out proactively to those folks and say, hey, I've got a job available, you've got the skills, please take a look at it. That's how we can be creative in helping companies who are looking for people get connected with the people who need the job. And you don't have to be on unemployment benefits to use this. This is a great way, if you're not using it right now and you're looking for people, get onto that Nebraska Works website through the Department of Labor and start searching that database of the people we've got out to see if there's a fit for your organization. Now, one of the other things we're doing in the Department of Labor, too, is we've changed the regulations. Prior to my administration, we were asking people to look for jobs for unemployment benefits to make 2 contacts a week. Well, now we're asking to make 5 contacts. Why? Because if you're looking for a job more often, you're more likely to find it. And this is one of the ways that we can help people, again, get connected, get that job, get off of public assistance as quickly as possible, and also make sure their job skills don't degrade, because another thing we know is the longer you're out of the workforce, the harder it is to get that job. So that's another innovation we're doing to try and make sure that we can do a better job of getting people into the workforce and ultimately off of public assistance. And you will continue to see more announcements about how we are leveraging the resources of state government to do a better job delivering those services and bring our costs down. Now, I talked about regulation. And that system of measurement, that works for regulation too, to help cut the red tape that gets in the way of job creators such as yourselves. One of the areas that it works, for instance, is in our Department of Environmental Quality. For those of you who perhaps expanded your businesses, had to apply for a permit, one of the things that we are now doing is measuring how long it takes the department to turn those permits around and get back to you. And just by measuring how long we're taking to issue a permit, guess what? We've seen that time to issue a permit come down. Why? Because people know we care, that we're interested, we're focused on this. And so when they know that we're focused on this, they're doing a better job. You get what you measure. Thank you. That is just an example of how we can do a better job. Again, stay tuned. You will see more announcements on how we're going to be tackling regulation in general and being able to do a better job of getting out of the way of job creators so you can do a better job of creating them. We also have to push back on the federal government when it comes to regulation. 2 examples I'll use there. One is the waters of the U.S. Here is a case where the EPA is trying to vastly expand their authority. They're using the 1972 Clean Water Act to say that they have now, well, under that Clean Water Act, what it said, Congress was very clear about this, they said navigable water. Congress put that in that act over 80 times. Could have been more clear. Now the EPA is trying to expand that to apparently anything that gets wet. Because what they're saying is they now have the authority to regulate ponds, roadside ditches, water, maybe from a rainfall after on a construction site after it rains. Now, maybe nobody at the EPA goes canoeing, but none of those fit the definition of navigable waters. And so working with Doug Peterson, and by the way, I will put in a big plug for Doug right now. He's doing a fantastic job. He's a great partner. He's great to work with. We are suing the EPA to get a court to say, no, guess what, EPA? You have to follow the law just like everybody else. The meaning of the law was clear. You do not have authority to regulate. And, importantly, we've gotten a judge to agree with us. A judge, we were one of the 13 states that sued the EPA, and we got an initial stay from a judge in North Dakota who agreed with us that we would be irreparably harmed if this regulation was allowed to go forward. Since that time, another judge has ruled that the rest of the country is also covered by that stay, and so this law is not being implemented anywhere in the United States until it goes through the courts. Now that's also important because judges are not likely to do that. They don't like giving those stays unless they think you've got a good case. So we're very optimistic about our opportunities in court to be successful. Another area we've got to push back is the Clean Power Act. And again, this is a case where the EPA is taking existing rules and trying to bend them to their own agenda. In this case, they are calling on us, the state of Nebraska, to cut our carbon emissions by 40%. And I will tell you that the original plan they laid out actually was to cut it by 26%. And the local EPA folks did not know that the people in Washington were going to come back with the up 40%. That demonstrates that this is an agenda being driven by the Obama administration. Well, what's that agenda? Well, the agenda is cap and trade because they know we can't comply. We get 62 to 63% of our electricity in the state from coal-burning plants. And by the way, we're a public power state. Our public utilities are doing a great job of being progressive, of getting more renewable fuels. You know what Lincoln Electric is doing. NPPD is working with a company called Monolith Materials to create the first hydrogen-burning, utility-scale power plant in the United States, right here in Nebraska. And when you burn hydrogen, you know what you get? Water vapor. It's absolutely clean. OPPD is also pushing toward their goals of more renewable fuel, or renewable energy. Our public power is doing a good job. We are an entertainment area. We've got clean air. It's the cleanest in the country. Thank you. We don't need the EPA looking over our shoulder. What they're trying to do, because they know we can't comply, is they said, well, we know you might not be able to comply, but you can work with other states to trade your credits. Well, folks, that's cap and trade. We fought this battle at the beginning of the Obama administration when the president had a supermajority in both the House and the Senate. He could not pass this bill because the American people did not want it. And now he's trying to accomplish through regulation what he could not accomplish through legislation, and that's wrong. So we are working with other states right now to be able to band together, sue the EPA when the rules become final, and take them to court and again get a judge to say, no, EPA, you have to follow the law just like everybody else. I'll give you one quick example under this law how to break the rules. In these rules it says if you've got a new source, it has to comply with commercially available emissions technology, which is, okay, commercially available at work, efficient. Seems like a good idea, right? Well, what the EPA is trying to say is one plant that is subsidized by the federal government using experimental technology is now the standard. Completely in violation of the language of the bill, which says specifically that the plant, the example you have to use for this technology, cannot be subsidized by the federal government. So that's just one example of how the EPA is breaking the law, and we've got to hold them accountable. Again, we've got a great person in Doug Peterson who's fighting for our rights here in Nebraska, of course supported by my administration and working with the Department of Energy, the Department of Environmental Law. We will, we've been putting together clean power plants already here in the state. We're going to do what's right for Nebraska and not allow ourselves to be railroaded by this administration who's trying to go around the law and accomplish their agenda they could not pass through legislation. Now finally, when it comes to education, we have a great state for education. We've got the second highest graduation rate in the country of states who give their kids the ACT test at 80% or more of kids. We rank #1 in that score. But we've got more work to do there too. Again, this is a culture change and continuous improvement we've got to have. And here where we need to focus on is career vocation. We've got a tremendous number of great jobs available right out there in Nebraska today for people who have that skilled labor background. And we need to make sure our kids have the opportunity to get that in their education system. So I've created a program to give out grants to get private sector companies to work with the school systems to be able to develop curriculum to help expose our kids to those opportunities. We started a pilot program where we gave out a grant to a company in Kearney, working with technology, and one in Hastings, working in manufacturing. They get 7th and 8th graders interested in those fields. And the good news is, school systems aren't waiting. You know, here in Lincoln, you've got Lincoln Public Schools working with Southeast Community College, their career academy. You've got the same thing in Grand Island. I was in York High School a few weeks ago. They've got a program working with Lanky Manufacturing out of Deschamps and Central Valley Ag to create certification programs so that kids can take classes in high school, junior and senior year, get that certification, and graduate as an irrigation technician or chemical ag applicator. I was talking to Chris Roth at Ryan that formed that first job there. Those jobs pay anywhere between $35,000 and $50,000. You can graduate on a Friday and start working on Monday. Now, when I told the high school kids they could graduate on Friday and start working on Monday, they didn't seem to think that was such a keen idea. But I assured them their parents would think that was a wonderful idea. But even if they weren't going to go straight into that workforce, that certification program gives them dual credit to be able to apply for a 2-year or a 4-year degree. And this is important because every manufacturer I've talked to, and I've talked to the Nebraska Healthcare Association, same true in the health field, nobody can find enough skilled labor. And it's a barrier for them expanding their organizations. So we've got to work, helping make sure we've got the right trained, skilled workforce here. Putting these things together, you can see, becoming more competitive on taxes, cutting the regulatory red tape, which gets in the way of job training, and making sure we've got the right trained, skilled workforce here in our state to expand. This is how we're going to grow the state. And that is the focus of my administration. But as Kobe was saying earlier today, I can't do without it. You know, a lot of people want to talk about sustainability. But true sustainability comes from economic growth. We couldn't do what we do in government. We couldn't provide the services. We couldn't create that infrastructure without you. Because you create the jobs that allow people to take care of their families, buy their homes, and to pay their taxes, which is how this is all funded. If it wasn't for you expanding the economy, creating more jobs, creating more opportunities, we wouldn't be able to do what we do in government. So thank you all very, very much for what you do each and every day to make Nebraska the best place to live, work, and raise a family. And by working with you and people all across the state, we can create those better jobs. Keep our young people here, attract people from across the country to come here, to continue to make Nebraska the best place in the world to live, and create even better futures for the people of our state. And folks, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm so excited to be your governor.